the Cucumber testing framework. Has anybody heard of Cucumber? Anybody come across Cucumber before? Yeah, a few, not as many. Okay, that's my wife. She had to listen to me while I was preparing the presentation and rewriting it from scratch thanks to her constructive criticism.
I hear a test though.
Just before I go on, a couple of things I forgot to mention earlier. I really wanted to say thank you to Tech Systems, John and Dan for buying a round of drinks. There's a tab open downstairs if you go down and order a drink under the Testing Club, then they'll put it on the tab for you. And I also wanted to say that the meeting is broadly sponsored by the Software Testing Club. So they pay for the venue, and there's a load of papers over there which you can help yourselves to as well as my business card. I'm not sure how that got over there. My name's Simon Knight, in case I didn't mention it earlier. I'm currently a freelance software tester, and I organise these events with the help of co-hosts like Bill Matthews on occasion, and Tom, our special guest, James Bach, our other special guest, Adam Knight. So thanks guys, and Matt, who supplies the projector as well. Thank you. Sorry, I try to remember to get everybody in. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about Cucumber. I'm gonna qualify my talk. This is my subjective experience on a project that was using Cucumber for the first time. So it was my first time using the Cucumber tool. It was also the development team that I was working with. It's the first time using the tool as well. So it's based on my experience having had to learn how to use the tool as effectively as possible within a fairly short space of time, while also trying to get to grips with a new project, new technologies, new team, all of that sort of stuff. So while I'm talking, keep that in mind. I'm by no means an expert on Cucumber. I certainly wouldn't claim to be. It's just my experience and opinions. So I should probably tell you what Cucumber is first, right? Those of you who aren't experienced with it. Hang on, I have some notes somewhere. Cucumber is basically an automation tool. So what it enables you to do is to write the requirements for the product under development in kind of a codified fashion that is intended to be readable by Joe Bloggs, business analyst, stroke project manager, stroke product owner. So it's meant to be broadly readable to somebody who doesn't understand code, and then used to drive automated tests that will ensure the product that you're developing meets the requirements that you've specified for it. The way that it does that is by having a set of step definitions, more code, basically underneath the Cucumber requirements that you've specified, that hooks onto the Cucumber script and then drives some other stuff lower down that runs tests and tells you whether or not they're passed or failed. Does that sound okay to everybody so far? Does it make sense? Hopefully you'll get more of an idea as I go on. I don't want to spend too much time trying to explain how it works though, because that would take considerably longer than the 5 minutes my presentation is supposed to take.
Is it like a pseudocode?
Yes. I'll show you what it looks like in a minute. And then
It's actually code, it's not pseudocode.
Well, I'll show you what my script looked like, and then I'll show you what it's supposed to look like. Okay, so, Cucumber, my experience, the good. It gave me really good feedback. we use Cucumber in a continuous integration environment. So what that means is we implemented it with another tool that allowed us to check the developer's code every time they wrote some new stuff and applied it to all the rest of the stuff that they'd already written. We kind of checked that code in and then ran all of our tests against it to see whether it still worked or whether they'd broken it. So broadly speaking, Cucumber worked really well in that sense. I wrote a load of stuff with it. The developers implemented some of that stuff, and it told us whether or not what they'd written worked per the tests that I designed. It gave me a degree of confidence in the builds that I was then supplied to do some more sort of manual testing on, because I knew that all of these tests had already been run against the build and they'd all passed before I even got anything to sort of start playing around with and testing manually, doing some manual exploratory testing with. So that, from my perspective, was really, really good.
I don't understand what you just said. Because you said Cucumber did that. Cucumber didn't do that. Your test automation did that. You can do that test automation without Cucumber. Any test automation will do that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the concept of test automation is what you just praised, not Cucumber.
Yeah.
Okay. Make sure you note that.
That was the good
Okay.
stuff that we did in terms of test
Okay.
automation. With
It's like you said,
with Cucumber
the
as
advantages of
example.
owning a pink car shaped like a giant hot dog. Well, I can drive it to work. Well, yes, but you can do that with other kinds of cars that aren't
Absolutely.
necessarily pink or shaped like hot dogs.
Absolutely.
Okay, got it.
So now we're moving on to the bad. Okay?
This is only good thing. Note 2.
You didn't let me finish. Okay. Yeah, my list of bad is slightly longer. I hated writing Cucumber scripts. I found it really, 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 really tedious. I work from home quite a lot, so fortunately I could do things like have the TV running in the background to distract my brain from the extraordinarily tedious task of writing Cucumber scripts. I was able to do both at the same time, but my brain just wanted to switch off for the entire period that I was writing these scripts. I'm not saying this is going to be the case for everybody. You know, this is my experience. I hated it. I just hated writing the scripts. I can't explain it. That got better as I progressed, and I don't know. Maybe it was something to do with sort of ramping up my knowledge about how to write the scripts effectively and how to sort of implement this Cucumber code stuff. But I really didn't enjoy it at first. It got easier, but I still don't enjoy it very much. Governance is a bit of an issue. The way that we implemented a Cucumber, and again, I'm not saying this is the case on every project, is that I would write the Cucumber scripts in Gherkin, which is another story, and then I would pass those scripts over to our developers, who would then write another layer of code underneath those tests. That was the last I saw of my scripts. Did they implement them properly? I don't know. Did they implement all of them? I didn't know. Until some way down the project, when I decided to do a bit of analysis and find out, you know, what kind of coverage we got from our scripts, etc., etc. Found out that the developers hadn't bothered to implement half of the scripts that I provided, and had probably commented out another third of the scripts that I provided as well. So I was removed from the testing process to some degree, which I found frustrating. Also, whilst writing the scripts, I have no feedback. I write them, I give them to the developers. Do they work? I don't know. Have I written them correctly? I don't know. It was quite a frustrating process. As James has pointed out, they are checks, not tests. The testing that was done using Cucumber could equally well be carried out by a great many other tools with considerably less effort in some circumstances. For example, in addition to these tests, I wanted to do some sanity checking when I got a build. So I wrote some JMeter tests that did exactly the same thing. It took me a couple of days to write a complete set of tests in JMeter that did more or less the same thing as what the pack of Cucumber tests that took me probably a couple of months to write we're doing. So wasn't hugely impressed with that. Also, very high maintenance. I write the scripts, I pass them on to the developers, they have to write more code to make the scripts do what they're supposed to do. If the requirements change, I have to rewrite my scripts, the developers have to rewrite the underlying code, so on and so forth. Every time the requirements change, the Cucumber scripts that are meant to document those requirements, they all need to change too. Again, this is an issue that you'd face with any other kind of test automation, but the fact is there's more people involved in the chain this time. I'm having to rewrite my tests, the developers are having to rewrite the code that implements my tests. It's a lot of work. So that's the bad. Now there's the downright ugly. So this is a quote from David de Florier's and I don't know if I pronounced that right. Gojko Adzik. I don't know if I pronounced that right either. Sorry. Goiko. Right. Okay. Yeah, from them. This is a quote from their Cuc4 Ninja book. So, Cucumber should be used to automate functional validation in a form that is easily readable and understandable to business users, developers and testers. James knows exactly where I'm going with this. He blogged about it recently. Oh, sorry. So this is an example of what my scripting looked like. It's an exaggerated example, I admit. I found the worst looking example I could find. But I would assert that that's not very easily readable to Joe Blogg's business analyst, stroke project developer.
I think Goiko would also say that is not.
I'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
I'm going to come on to that point. I'll just take you through roughly what this is doing. I can't show you the product that it was actually testing. So basically what we're saying here is so new bank details validation. So we're validating that when somebody enters new bank details into the system, it gets checked basically. So given I load some stuff to make this test work, and I'm logged in with somebody who's entitled to use the system, and I'm on the enter new details page. So I'm on the page where we're going to change the bank details, and I see some stuff, and I see some more stuff. When I click this link, then I see a message that tells me something. Yeah, that's what the test is doing. And this stuff here is data for that test. So basically, it iterates through this table and says, on each iteration, enter this or this or this or this and see this message. So it's fairly straightforward automation stuff. It's the kind of automation you'd expect to do, broadly speaking, with any automated test. It's basic. That is what that is likely to look like, though, if you try to write that sort of test with Cucumber. Okay? If you're trying to do something that's iterative, that's doing a load of stuff at once, then it's going to be codified to some degree, and it looks a bit messy. There's no way around it. This is what Goiko asserts that test should look like. So that's obviously a lot more readable. And this is how Cucumber is intended to be used. So the business user can read this and say, yes, that's what I want my software to do.
But that's a lie.
But that doesn't do what I want my testing to do. It doesn't test the stuff that I want to test. If I ran this test, yeah, it'd check one thing. It'd say, if you did this one thing, then you'd see this one message. To do the same thing as my other test was doing, I'd have to write another 20 tests that looked more or less like that, but slightly different.
It's also that other thing that really bugs me is that that's flat out not true. It's a lie. That is a lie. It doesn't mean, when Goico wrote that, he didn't mean given that I am logged in as a registered user. What it actually means is given that I believe I am in the state of being logged in as a particular registered user, which is very different from given that you are logged in as a registered user. And if you think that that's splitting hairs, that's what testers do. We need to split hairs.
Just ask my wife.
We can't just say, oh, I logged in one time as a registered user, so therefore all registered user logging in works because I tried it one time. And that's the kind of writing that makes people think, we tested that because we tested one thing one time. But testers have to say, wait a minute, just because you think you're logged in doesn't mean you are logged in. We have to get more detailed. We need to do more with our testing, just like you said.
So I want to wrap this up because I don't want to harp on about it. I want to give you time to ask questions as well if you want to. But the only way, based on my present knowledge about Cucumber, that we could make this test do what we wanted to, is to hide all of that other stuff lower down. So the developers would have to do some stuff and code in all of the other stuff that I want this test to do. We can't make our Cucumber tests look like this and do something useful at the same time. And that, for me, is the problem with Cucumber. I didn't originally intend to write this presentation and slam Cucumber. I wanted to do a Cucumber presentation. I kind of wanted to say something useful and constructive. But I don't know, I just find my experience of using Cucumber thus far has been supremely frustrating. Hence the talk. So if you've got any questions, I imagine that some of you have used Cucumber probably more effectively than I have. Like I said, it's the first time I've used it, but I'm not new to automation. I know what I want to achieve with automated testing, and this, for me, it doesn't do it. So, any questions?
The reason it doesn't do what you want it to do, it's not an automated test tool. This is not testing. This is a mistake that everybody makes. It's not a solution to a testing problem. So people, that previous example.
What is it a solution to?
A communication team issue.
Okay, so what this is intended to do is to be communicated to the product owner and the BAs and all of those guys.
Let me finish. So it's what people do is it's a communication tool so that you can find a way. So first of all, so when you were talking about sat down and right in front of television, apparently you're supposed to sit down in teams. So there's you from the test team representing test, there's a developer, there's a product owner, BA, blah blah. You're supposed to create them together. That's one thing. It's not supposed to be one person writing one word. And then everyone is because you've agreed this thing together, and everybody knows what is working towards a common goal. Apparently, allegedly, this is how I understand it. It's supposed to work. And all of this automation stuff that everyone bolts on top of really gets on my nerves because it's not built to do that. I never, like you said, you don't run that and then say, okay, it's past, so happy days. I'm going to put my feet up and smoke a cigar. That's not what it's for. But people.
It is expressly for that. And you write a whole lot of code to make it do that. If it wasn't for that, you wouldn't write all that code. All that code wouldn't be necessary. You just write the words and you'd be done with it. And that's called specification.
It is not a test tool. This was not built to fix testing. It was not built for that.
And yet it is doing a whole bunch of things that are exercising the product, right?
Yeah, but it isn't.
Why is it doing that? What's the point of that?
Okay, because I'm not an expert on this stuff. It's just I've read a few things on it. So, well, yeah. So the reason it's doing that is because now you've got all these acceptance criteria that are supposed to document what the system does. And so in order
just cross the threshold into testing, right there. You're in the testing room. You're in the testing ballroom. What are you doing here?
Not yet. Not yet.
You did. You're there. I see you.
Not yet.
Okay, go ahead.
Not yet. So it documents what the thing's supposed to do. So it turns into testing when people start trying to say, okay, I've got these requirements, and I want to validate that they're correct all the time. And then people try and bolt on some automated stuff on top of it.
So this is
allegedly for free. Yeah, that's the way I understand it. This is just a way of documenting some requirements. I know, look, if I document them in a particular way, I can automate them and get some free regression testing done.
You use the word testing.
Checking.
Free regression checking, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's free something like looking at the status of the product.
That's the argument.
Yeah, but it's a lot of work to do that.
Exactly. And all I'm saying is that isn't testing. It wasn't built to do that.
Okay.
That's kind of, they're trying to sneak in a little freebie under.
So it's been abused.
I think so, because I keep having to have this conversation with people. It annoys me. Like when we hear people say, "Oh well, if we've done the acceptance criteria and they all passed, then I don't have to do any testing." And it's like, you completely lost your
So where do we do the automated testing?
Depends what you could. Well, yeah, depends what you call it.
So if we implement it like this, which isn't testing.
But you said you used what tool you used.
No, that was smoke testing. I mean, that's kind of a basic layer of testing to make sure that the build is fit for me to start testing it. That was to supplement this stuff. But I mean that's kind of the point, though, isn't it? That if you do this like this, then if you want to automate your testing, you're going to have to do another layer of testing. You're going to have to do this and another layer of automated testing.
It's my understanding that Cucumber is a behavior-driven development tool. The idea behind it is that you write your user stories in Gherkin, and then the automation stuff goes on the back end. So this isn't a testing tool, it's a behavior-driven development tool, and it's basically a parser. If you look at the back end, all it does is parse out information using regular expressions and things like that to turn that into code. So you've still got your automated testing in the background. It doesn't really affect that much. It's just a parsing tool to make sure that the testers, it's to force developers to think in terms of user stories and behavior so that they develop things that pass tests that describe behavior. So the code ends up being a solution to system behavior rather than a functional specification which can change in their own minds as they go through the technology. That's how I understand Cucumber.
Okay.
So it's like basically an abstraction layer at the top that falls into a behavior framework if you're a BDD person.
That's the dangerous word. When that word comes out, the word force, I get real nervous. You want to force me to only use certain words, to use only certain structures. Why do you want me to force? Why do you want to force me to do that? Because you think other words are not expressive or not effective?
I mean, I'm not a behavior-driven developer.
Right.
I couldn't tell you, but it's my understanding that it's to stop developers developing away from actual.
That's my understanding too. That's also my understanding. And I think that there's some really sinister aspects to this that people say, oh, it's just innocent. I'm just doing something really innocent. It's kind of like someone saying, I'm just cutting down all the brush in the forest because I want the forest to look nice, and not realizing that they're destroying the ecosystem. That's the level in which I'm concerned about this, is that there's all kinds of communication that happens, but when you put together a structure and say you must use certain words in certain forms, and we're going to devote a lot of time to these certain words in certain forms, you are exalting one form of communication and pushing down other, marginalizing other forms of communication. And that's really disturbing to me, especially when it's combined with people who aren't coders, who are looking directly at code and not realizing that they are looking directly at code. Because people who don't program don't understand programs. And that's not English. It's a program that's disguised as English. So people are going to think they understand it, but they don't understand it. They don't understand the limitations of it. They're going to interpret it as if a human said it to them. But the back end isn't a human. The back end isn't interpreting it like a human. So this whole thing seems to me based on deception. And I'm really nervous about that, more than nervous about it. Especially when all I hear from Cucumber boosters is, isn't this cool? Isn't this cool? And nothing about any of these other issues. So
Let's, we'll take one more quick question and then I'll hand over to you, James.
it's been lightning and
Can you bring
thunder.
up that slide again? That had the what becomes for the author.
Yeah.
You know, about the
The
quote about
quote.
design for it, because something struck me. Because I've just started looking at this about a month ago, and then the time you put your blog post up about why it doesn't work, and that makes it up in my tracks. And I've not looked at it since. But there's something that something struck me while you were actually saying this. If you measure a Venn diagram of, and just have 3 points that you think A is developers and testers. And where them to set is, I think, what this is trying to sit in the middle of, something that can be understood by those 3 people. But I don't really understand why you need it, because of BAs produce a functional spec, developers produce their code, which is specific, which is what they've done, and testers have their own materials and everything they've come up with as they've explored it. So you've got your 3 sets of materials, as it were. I don't see why you need a 4th compromise in the middle. It doesn't really serve anyone's real purpose, because they've all got their own sets of material anyway that they've, documents they've produced, which has created the product in the first place. So I think that it looks to me like a sort of compromise in the middle that no one really wants to do. It ends up with perhaps testers doing most of it if they're so inclined. And no one will probably really get as much out of it as they think, because it's a compromise that no one really wants in the middle, out of a lot of effort, as you just described. So just on that basis alone, just on that one sentence there, I think it's going to be an uphill struggle, if not doomed. So on that negative note.
Okay. Before we hand over to you, James, is it okay if Bill does his draw?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay.